Part 2. They asked for a pet. Humans showed up with a predator. No one could handle the biodome on the station's lower level, had been transformed. Day One had spent the entire morning setting up reinforced barriers made of clear material, creating a safe zone where everyone could watch from a distance. He added a water bowl, some shade areas, and made sure the temperature was comfortable. The floor was covered with artificial grass that felt real under his feet. Hana watched all these preparations with growing concern. Her feathers had lost their usual bright shimmer and had turned a dull blue-gray, which Day One had learned meant she was worried. "Is all this really necessary?" she asked, looking at the barriers. "For a companion animal?" "On Earth, yes. We always make sure there's enough space and proper boundaries, especially when introducing our companions to new people. But the barriers are so strong. They look like they could hold back a small ship?" Day One didn't answer that directly. He just smiled and said, "Better safe than sorry." The biodome began to fill with spectators. It seemed like everyone on the station wanted to see the human's mysterious pet. The Quilnari clustered together in groups, their feathers touching. The Thranxes found high perches where they could watch from above. The Mulvari stayed near the exits, their leaf bodies rustling nervously. Tae Yang, the station commander, arrived last. He was an Orvathian, which meant he looked somewhat like a tall octopus that had decided to walk upright. His skin was dark purple and very smooth, and his tentacles moved in patterns that showed he was calm and in control. "Day One," Tae Yang said in his bubbling voice. "This setup concerns me. Should I be concerned?" "No more than usual," Day One replied. "That is not reassuring." Mirai, another human on the station, stood near Day One. She was an engineer, tall and thin, with her black hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She was trying very hard not to laugh. "You okay?" Day One whispered to her. "I'm just thinking about what happens when they see her." Mirai whispered back. "This is going to be amazing." Fortan approached with his security team, all of them carrying weapons. "Everyone behind the barriers." "No exceptions, including me?" Day One asked. "No, you stay in the demonstration zone. But if anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong," Day One said firmly. The cargo container sat in the center of the demonstration area. Day One walked over to it, feeling hundreds of alien eyes watching him. He placed his hand on the release panel and took a deep breath. "Ready?" he called out. No one answered. They were too nervous. Day One pressed the button. The container door opened with a hiss of air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shape moved inside the darkness of the container. Something big. Something that made a sound. A panting, huffing sound that echoed through the biodome. Bada came out. She was a German shepherd, large and powerful, with a dark coat that was almost black along her back and tan on her legs and face. Her ears stood up straight, alert and focused. Her eyes were bright and intelligent, scanning the crowd of aliens with interest. Her mouth was open, tongue hanging out as she panted from the warmth, showing rows of white teeth that looked very, very sharp. The reaction was immediate. The Quilnari made high-pitched shrieking sounds and fluttered backward, their wings beating frantically. Some of them crashed into each other in their panic. The Thranxes on their high perches scrambled higher, their forearms grabbing for safety. The Mulvari turned and rushed toward the exits, their leaves shaking so hard that some fell off. Ortan's hand went to his weapon, but he didn't draw it. His whole body was tense, ready to act. His security team spread out, forming a defensive line between Bada and the crowd. Only Tai Yang remained calm, though his tentacles had curled up tight against his body, which Day One knew meant he was very uncomfortable. Bada, completely unaware of the panic she had caused, looked up at Day One and wagged her tail. The movement was happy and energetic. To the aliens, it probably looked like a weapon preparing to strike. "Everyone, please calm down," Day One said loudly. "This is Bada. She's completely safe." "Safe?" Hana's voice was shaking. She hadn't fled like the others, but she had pressed herself against the far barrier. "Day One, that creature has forward-facing eyes." "Yes, that's normal for forward-facing eyes mean predator. Every species knows this. Predators have forward-facing eyes to track prey." A Thranxes called down from his perch, his voice high and frightened. "And the teeth. Look at the teeth." Bada chose that moment to yawn, stretching her jaws wide and showing every tooth in her mouth. The yawn ended with a small squeaking sound as she settled into a sitting position. Someone in the crowd fainted. Day One couldn't see who. Those are fangs, Vortan said, his voice steady despite his obvious tension. Your companion has fangs designed for ripping and tearing. Well, yes, Daewon admitted. But she doesn't use them on people. What does she use them on? Her food, her toys. Sometimes sticks, but we're trying to train her out of that. Beta looked around at all the aliens staring at her. She tilted her head to one side, curious. Then she looked back at Daewon and made a small whining sound. He knew that sound. She was asking if everything was okay. Daewon knelt down beside her and scratched behind her ears. Bata leaned into his hand, her tail wagging harder. She made a soft, happy sound, almost a groan of pleasure. The watching aliens gasped. You're touching it, a Mulvari shouted from the exit. With your bare hands. She likes being petted, Daewon explained. It makes her happy. See her tail? That wagging motion means she's pleased. It looks like a warning signal, Hana said, though she had moved a tiny bit closer to the barrier. I promise it's not. Here, watch this. Daewon stood up and walked a few steps away. Bata, come. Bata immediately stood and trotted over to him, her claws clicking on the artificial grass. She sat down beside him without being told, looking up at his face with clear devotion. The Quilnari made more distressed sounds. It follows commands. You've trained an apex predator to obey you. Yes, that's exactly what we did. Vortan stepped forward, staying on his side of the barrier. Let me understand this correctly. Your species found a predator, something that could hunt and kill you, and decided to train it? To keep it in your homes? Not exactly, Daewon said. We didn't really find them. It was more like we found each other. About 30,000 years ago, wolves and humans realized we could help each other. We evolved together. They became dogs. We became, well, people who really like dogs. Wolves? Hana asked. The wild ancestors of dogs. They're bigger than Beta and they do still hunt in packs. And humans thought this was a good idea. To bring wild pack hunters into your homes? We thought it was a great idea. And we were right. Dogs help us with many things. They guard our homes. They help us hunt. They find people who are lost. They comfort us when we're sad. They play with our children. Children? Several voices shouted this at once. Daewon pulled out his datapad and showed them pictures. Human babies sleeping next to large dogs. Small children riding on dogs' backs. Toddlers using dogs as pillows. In every picture, the dogs looked gentle and protective, and the children looked completely safe. Taeyang moved closer to the barrier, his tentacles relaxing slightly. This is remarkable. Your young ones are vulnerable, yes? Small and weak compared to adults? Very much so. And you trust these predators around them? With our lives. With our children's lives. Dogs have protected human children for thousands of years. There are stories of dogs dying to save children from danger. Dying? Hana's feathers had started to show a little more color. The predator protects the prey? We're not really prey, Daewon said. Not to dogs. To them we're pack. We're family. Bata, getting a little bored with all the standing around, lay down and rolled onto her back. Her legs stuck up in the air and she looked absolutely ridiculous. Her tongue hung out the side of her mouth and she made a contented groaning sound. Mireille finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She started laughing. Sorry, she said between giggles. It's just, you're all so scared and she's over there asking for belly rubs. Belly rubs? Hana asked. Daewon walked over and rubbed Bata's stomach. Her back leg started kicking in the air automatically, a reflex that dogs had. Her tail thumped against the ground. She loves this, Daewon explained. When a dog shows you their belly, it means they trust you completely. The belly is vulnerable, so showing it is a sign of trust. The aliens watched in silence. This predator, this creature with fangs and claws and forward-facing eyes, was lying on her back making happy sounds while a human rubbed her stomach. Vortan spoke quietly. Your species is either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Daewon agreed. But we've never been alone because of it. Beta rolled back onto her feet and shook herself, her tags jingling. She looked at the crowd of aliens with friendly interest, her tail still wagging. Tomorrow, Daewon said, I'll show you more. How she plays, how she eats, how she responds to different commands. You'll see that she's not dangerous, not to us anyway. Not to you, Hana said softly. But Daewon, to us, to species without predators of our own, she is the most dangerous thing most of us have ever seen. Daewon looked at Bata, who was now sniffing at a flower growing in the biodome, her tail wagging as she explored. Dangerous? Maybe to someone who didn't understand. Part 1. They asked for a pet. Humans showed up with a predator. No one could handle Station Valara 9 floated quietly in space, orbiting a small moon that belonged to no one. The station was huge, with silver walls and blue lights that ran along every corridor. Inside, aliens from 12 different worlds walked together, talked together, and tried to understand each other. This was the Galactic Council's newest idea, a cultural exchange program. They wanted to learn about the humans, the new species that had just joined the galactic community. Daewon stood in the main presentation hall, watching the other species show off their companion animals. He was 28 years old, a xenobiologist from Earth, and he wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. His black hair was slightly messy, and he had an easy smile that made most aliens feel comfortable around him. Most aliens, anyway. The Quilnari went first. They were bird-like creatures with beautiful feathers that changed colors when light hit them. Their representative, a female named Hana, opened a small container. Tiny insects flew out, no bigger than a human thumb. They glowed with soft pink and yellow light as they circled above her head. "These are flutterbugs," Hana explained, her voice making musical sounds. "They drink nectar. They make light. They are perfect companions, very safe, very gentle." The council members made approving sounds. Some took notes on their datapads. Others simply watched the pretty insects dance in the air. Next came the Threnxies, small gray beings with 4 arms and large black eyes. Their representative showed what looked like smooth rocks sitting in a cushioned box. But these rocks were alive. They hummed softly, a sound like distant singing. "Pocket stones," the Threnxies said proudly. "They live for 200 years. They never bite because they have no mouths. They never run because they have no legs. Perfect friends." More approving sounds filled the hall. The Mulvari brought out creatures that looked like fuzzy caterpillars, each one as long as a human forearm. The creatures immediately started spinning silk threads in beautiful patterns, creating designs that looked like art. "Silk weavers," explained the Mulvari, who resembled a walking plant with too many leaves. "They create beauty. They eat special food we give them. They cannot harm anyone. They have no eyes, no teeth, no claws." Daewon noticed a pattern. Every species had brought something small, something harmless, something that had been changed over thousands of years to be completely safe. These weren't really animals anymore. They were living toys. When it was his turn, Daewon walked to the center of the hall. All eyes, and there were many different kinds of eyes, turned to look at him. "Earth also has companion animals," he said. "We've lived with them for a very long time, but I need a few days to bring mine here. She's currently back on Earth, and the transport will take some time." Hana's feathers ruffled with what Daewon had learned meant excitement. "How wonderful. Is it small like our flutterbugs?" "No, not small," Daewon said carefully. "Does it glow? Make pretty things?" asked the Threnxies. "No, nothing like that. What does it do?" Hana asked. Daewon thought about how to answer. "She keeps me company. She protects me. She's been trained to help people." "Oh, a helper." Hana clapped her wing hands together. "How lovely." Vortan, the security chief, leaned forward. He was a Gorlix, massive and gray, built like a rhino, standing on 2 legs. His small eyes studied Daewon carefully. "What kind of help?" "Rescue work, mainly." "She saved people from dangerous situations." "Size?" Vortan asked, his voice deep and rough. "About this tall." Daewon held his hand at hip height. "Maybe 75 pounds, Vortan made a note. "Diet?" "Omnivore, but mostly meat." That got some attention. Several of the herbivore species shifted uncomfortably, but Hana just looked more curious, fascinating. "We look forward to meeting your companion, Daewon." After the presentation ended, Daewon went back to his small quarters on the station. The room was simple. A bed, a desk, a screen for communication, and a small window that showed the stars outside. He sat down and activated the video call system. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She had short black hair and was wearing a lab coat. Behind her, Daewon could see the familiar walls of the xenobiology lab back on Earth. "Ji-woo," Daewon said. "They want to see Bada." Ji-woo's eyes went wide. Then she started laughing. "You're joking." "I'm not joking. Daewon, you saw what they brought. Glowing bugs, singing rocks, fuzzy silk makers. And you're going to bring my dog?" "Yes." Ji-woo stopped laughing. "They have no idea, do they?" Not even a little bit. This is going to be a disaster. Or, Daewon said with a small smile, it's going to be very educational. Jiwoo sighed, but she was smiling too. Okay, I'll prep the transport. But you're going to need to file about 100 forms. And Daewon, make sure they have good security protocols ready. Already on it. Does the station commander know what's coming? I submitted the species information. Whether anyone actually read it, Daewon shrugged. 3 days later, a transport ship docked with Station Valara 9. Daewon stood in the cargo bay, waiting. 410 was with him, datapad in hand, checking the manifest. Large cargo container, Vortan read. Temperature controlled. Marked as a apex predator? He looked at Daewon. This is your companion? That's her. Apex predator means top of food chain. Yes. Top of food chain means it eats other things. Yes. Live things? Well, not anymore. We feed her prepared food. But her ancestors? Yes, they hunted live prey. Vortan's small eyes somehow got smaller. You bring a hunter to a peace station? She's trained. She's safe. Trust me. The cargo container was lowered to the deck. It was big, almost as tall as Daewon and twice as long. Labels covered every side. Live animal. Handle with care. Climate controlled. And in large red letters, Apex Predator, authorized personnel only. Hana arrived, her feathers bright with excitement. Is this her? Your companion? This is the transport container, yes. It's so large. She must be very special. Behind her, more council members gathered. The Quilnari, the Threnxes, the Mulvari, and others. They all wanted to see the human's pet. Fortan checked his datapad again, reading the information that Earth had sent. His expression changed as he read. Day 1. This document says your companion has significant bite force and natural hunting instincts and pack predator lineage. The other aliens heard this. Some of them stepped back. What kind of companion is this? Asked a Mulvari, their leaves shaking. Daewon kept his voice calm. The kind that's been humanity's friend for 30,000 years. You'll see. I just need to set up a proper demonstration area. Somewhere with space, good temperature control, and maybe some barriers for the first introduction. Barriers? Hana's feathers had stopped glowing quite so brightly. Just a precaution, for everyone's comfort. Fortan looked at the container, then at Daewon, then back at the container. I'm assigning a security team. That's probably smart, Daewon agreed. As the container was moved to a secure area, Daewon could hear sounds from inside. Scratching, a soft whine, then a bark, short, sharp, and loud enough to echo through the cargo bay. Every alien in the room froze. What was that sound? Whispered a Threnxes. That, Daewon said, was Bada saying hello. He didn't mention that the sound had been a friendly greeting. They would learn that soon enough. Or they would panic. Either way, things were about to get very interesting on Station Valara 9. Part 3. They asked for a pet. Humans showed up with a predator. No one could handle over the next several days. Daewon conducted demonstrations to prove that Bada was safe. Every demonstration made the aliens more afraid, not less. What Daewon thought would help them understand only made them see how dangerous humans were for living with creatures like this. The first demonstration was basic obedience training. The biodome was filled again with nervous spectators. Bada seemed excited, her tail wagging as she looked at Daewon, waiting for instructions. Sit, Daewon said clearly. Bada's rear end immediately hit the ground. She stared at him with focused attention. Good girl, stay. Daewon walked away. Bada didn't move, though her eyes followed him. He walked 10 meters away, then 20. Bada remained sitting perfectly still. Come. Bada ran to him, her paws thudding on the ground. She sat down in front of him without being asked, looking up with clear happiness. The watching aliens were horrified. You've trained it to follow complex commands, a Threnxes shouted from his safe perch. You've weaponized a predator. No, Daewon said quickly. This is just basic training. All dogs learn these commands. It's for safety and communication. Hana had moved closer to the barrier over the past few days. She was still nervous, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Daewon, please understand how this looks to us. You give orders to a predator and it obeys instantly. That level of control is disturbing. But it's partnership, not control. Watch this. Daewon pulled a ball from his pocket. A simple rubber ball, bright orange. He showed it to Bada, who immediately became more excited. Her whole body wiggled with anticipation. "Ready?" he asked her. Beta's tail wagged so hard her entire back end moved. Daewon threw the ball across the biodome. Bada exploded into motion, running at full speed. Her muscles moved under her fur like a machine built for hunting. She caught the ball in her mouth before it hit the ground, her teeth closing around it perfectly. Then she turned and ran back to Daewon, dropping the ball at his feet. A Quilnari in the front row collapsed. Other Quilnari caught her before she hit the ground and dragged her to safety. "What's wrong?" Daewon asked, concerned. Hana's feathers were standing straight up, puffed out in alarm. "Daewon, that was prey chase behavior. You just showed us that your predator practices hunting for fun. It's not hunting, it's playing. The predator doesn't know that. Its instincts are telling it to chase, catch, and—" Hana stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Vorton's voice rumbled from the security station. "How fast can it run, Bada?" "Maybe 40 kilometers per hour at full sprint. Some breeds are faster. Some breeds, there are more types. Hundreds of breeds. Different sizes, different abilities, different personalities." The security chief made a note on his datapad. Daewon suspected it said something like, "Humans are insane." The second demonstration went even worse. It was feeding time. Daewon brought out Bada's food, high-quality kibble mixed with real meat. The smell hit the biodome immediately. It was the smell of cooked flesh, of protein and fat, and something primal that herbivore species found deeply disturbing. 3 species evacuated immediately. They didn't even stay to watch. They just left, their instincts screaming at them to get away from the smell of meat. Bada ate with enthusiasm, crunching the kibble loudly. Each crunch made the remaining aliens flinch. When she got to the meat pieces, she used her teeth to tear them into smaller chunks. "Stop, stop," a mulvery called out, their leaves trembling. "We don't need to see more?" But Daewon continued. "She needs to eat twice a day. This is normal. She's not hunting anything. This food is prepared specially for her." "But the smell," Hana said, her voice muffled because she had wrapped a cloth around her face. "It's the smell of death." "It's the smell of dinner," Daewon corrected gently. After Bada finished eating, Daewon showed them more pictures on his datapad. Dogs eating from bowls in human kitchens, dogs sitting politely under tables waiting for scraps, dogs being hand-fed treats by smiling humans. "You feed them by hand?" Vorton asked. "You put your fingers near their mouths voluntarily?" "Yes, it builds trust. It builds opportunities for the predator to bite you." "But they don't, that's the point." "Dogs understand that we're not food. We're family." Taeyang, who had been mostly quiet during these demonstrations, finally spoke up. His tentacles moved in patterns that showed he was thinking carefully. "Daewon, I believe I'm beginning to understand, but it still seems impossible. These creatures could easily harm you, but they choose not to." "Exactly. They choose not to because we're their pack. Humans gave them food, shelter, and protection. They gave us loyalty, companionship, and help. It's been a good trade for 30,000 years. The third demonstration was play behavior, and this time Mireille volunteered to help. The aliens had seen Daewon interact with Bada, but they needed to see that other humans could safely be around her too. Mireille entered the demonstration area carrying a long rope toy. Bada immediately recognized it and her tail started wagging. Mireille waved the rope and Bada grabbed the other end in her mouth. They began to play tug-of-war. Bada pulled hard, growling as she tugged. The growl was deep and rumbling, full of energy. To the watching aliens, it sounded like a threat, like a warning before an attack. "It's attacking," someone shouted. "No, she's playing," Mireille called back, laughing. She pulled on the rope and Bada pulled back, her paws sliding on the grass as she tried to get better grip. "Those are battle sounds," Athranxis yelled. "Those are happy sounds." Mireille yanked hard on the rope and Bada stumbled forward, losing her grip. "Oh no, Bada, did you lose?" Bada grabbed the rope again, her tail wagging even harder. "This is ritual combat," Hana said, her feathers showing colors Daewon had never seen before, probably pure confusion. "The human is establishing dominance." "I'm playing tug-of-war," Mireille said, giving one more big pull. This time she let go and Bada went tumbling backward with the rope. The dog jumped up immediately, proud of her victory, and pranced around with the rope in her mouth. "See? She won. She's happy about it," Mireille explained. "You let the predator win?" Vorton asked. "Sometimes. It's more fun that way." "Fun? Fun for who?" "For both of us." "Look at her. She's having a great time." Bada was indeed having a great time. She was rolling on the grass with her rope toy, making happy growling sounds as she chewed on it. That night, Daewon returned to his quarters to find a message waiting. It was from Hana. She wanted to talk privately. They met in one of the station's smaller observation rooms. The lights were dim, and stars filled the window. Hana stood near the glass, her feathers a quiet mix of blue and silver. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. "Of course. Is something wrong? I've been studying your data about dogs, about the domestication process, about wolves and early humans." She turned to face him. "Day1, I need to understand. How did this happen? How did your species take something that could hunt you and turn it into something that would die for you?" Day1 sat down in one of the human-sized chairs. "It took a long time. Thousands of years. The wolves that were less afraid of humans, that were curious instead of aggressive, they survived better near human camps. They got scraps from our food, protection from other predators, warmth from our fires and the humans. We got warning when danger was near. Help hunting large animals. Companionship in a dangerous world." He paused. "But more than that, I think. We got friendship. Real friendship with a creature completely different from us." Hana's feathers rippled. "And it changed you? The humans?" "Yes, we learned patience, responsibility, how to read the emotions of another species. Dogs taught us that family doesn't have to be the same species. That love can cross between completely different types of life. But they're predators. So are we," Day1 said quietly. "Humans are persistence hunters. We chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We use tools to kill from a distance. We're omnivores, but we're perfectly capable of hunting. Maybe that's why we understood each other, wolves and humans. We were both pack hunters. We both understood cooperation, loyalty, and working together for survival." Hana was quiet for a long moment. "The council is writing reports. Many species are frightened. Some think humans are dangerous because you can control predators. Others think you're foolish for trusting them. What do you think?" "I think..." Hana's feathers shifted to a color Day1 had never seen, pale gold with hints of green. "I think your species looked at something that scared you and decided to make it family instead of an enemy. And I think that's either the bravest or strangest thing I've ever heard." "Maybe both," Day1 agreed. "I want to learn more. I want to understand this bond. May I observe more? Not just demonstrations, but real interactions?" "Of course, anytime." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Outside the window, Station Valara 9 floated peacefully in space. Inside, humans and aliens were learning that family could look very different from what anyone expected. Tomorrow, there would be more demonstrations. More fear and more confusion. But also more understanding. Slowly, step by step, the galaxy was learning what humans had known for 30,000 years. Sometimes the scariest things make the best friends. Part 4. They asked for a pet. Humans showed up with a predator no one could handle. 3 weeks had passed since Bada arrived on Station Valara 9. The fear had not disappeared, but it had become familiar. Aliens still avoided walking too close to her, but they no longer screamed when they saw her in the corridors. Some even stopped to watch from a safe distance when Day1 took her for walks through the station's main areas. Hana had become braver. She now stood only 2 meters away during demonstrations instead of hiding behind barriers. Once she had even thrown Bada's ball, though her hand had shaken so much the ball had only gone a few meters. Bada hadn't minded. She retrieved it happily and dropped it at Hana's feet. Tail wagging. Vortan still didn't trust Bada, but he had stopped calling her the Fang Beast and started using her name. Progress. Everything changed on a quiet afternoon during station shift change. Day1 was in his quarters, filling out reports while Bada slept on her bed in the corner. She was sprawled out in that way dogs sleep when they feel completely safe, her legs stretched in all directions, snoring softly. The alarm shattered the peace. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. A harsh mechanical voice echoed through the station speakers. "Security breach. Section 7. All personnel evacuate to safe zones." "This is not a drill." Day1 jumped up. Bada was immediately alert, no longer sleepy. She stood next to him, tense and focused. He activated his communication panel. "This is Day1. What's happening?" Vortan's voice came through, tight with stress. "Pirates. 4 Krell raiders. They breached during shift change. They've taken hostages in Section 7. How many hostages? 6, 3 Quilnery researchers, 2 Threnxi civilians, and... Fortan paused. And Hana? Daewon felt his chest go tight. What do the pirates want? Medical supplies, data cores, and safe passage off the station. They're threatening to start killing hostages if we don't comply within 1 hour. Can security get to them? Not without risking the hostages. These Krell are desperate. They're using the hostages as shields. We can't get a clean shot. Daewon looked at Beta. She looked back at him, her ears forward, waiting for a command. In that moment, an idea formed in his mind. A crazy, dangerous idea. He grabbed his communication device and ran toward the command center, Bada at his side. The command center was chaos. Taeyang stood at the main console, his tentacles moving rapidly across controls. Fortan was coordinating his security teams. Screens showed views of Section 7, where 4 Krell raiders, ugly creatures that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect, held their weapons on the terrified hostages. Day 1, Taeyang said when he saw him. You should be in a safe zone. I have an idea. It's not a good idea, but it might work. I'm listening. The ventilation shafts connect to Section 7, right? Yes, but they're too small for security personnel. They're not too small for Bada. Everyone in the command center turned to look at him. Several people started talking at once. Absolutely not, Fortan said immediately. Hear me out. Bada is trained in search and rescue. She's worked in collapsed buildings, disaster zones, and dangerous environments. She can track people by scent. She can move through tight spaces. And if necessary, she can protect people from threats. You want to send your pet into a hostage situation? Taeyang's tentacles had gone completely still, which meant he was shocked. She's not just a pet. She's a trained rescue dog. She saved 13 lives in her career. Mirai's voice came through the communication system. She was in the engineering section. I can guide them through the shaft system. I have the maps. If Daewon thinks Beta can do this, then it's insane, Fortan said, but his voice had doubt in it now. We're talking about sending a dog to fight armed pirates. Not to fight. To rescue. There's a difference. Taeyang looked at the screen showing the hostages. Hana was there, her feathers completely gray with fear. The Krell were getting more agitated, waving their weapons around. Time was running out. What do you need? Taeyang asked finally. 15 minutes later, Daewon and Bada were in the maintenance tunnels. Mirai was with them, carrying portable lights and a communication device. The plan was simple, maybe too simple. Bada would track Hana's scent through the ventilation system, find the hostages, and then Daewon would improvise. This is either brilliant or we're all going to be in so much trouble, Mirai whispered. Probably both. Daewon pulled out a piece of cloth he had taken from Hana's quarters, something she had worn recently. He held it down for Bada to smell. Bada, find Hana. Bada sniffed the cloth carefully, then lifted her nose to the air. Her whole body changed. She was working now, focused and professional. This was what she had been trained for. She led them through the tunnels, her nose to the ground, then to the air, then back to the ground. She never hesitated. Daewon had seen her do this before, in training exercises and real emergencies. She always found what she was looking for. They reached a vent that opened into Section 7. Through the grating, Daewon could see the room below. The hostages were huddled together in one corner. The 4 Krell raiders were spread out, nervous and trigger-happy. Security, we're in position, Daewon whispered into his communicator. Stand by, Fortan replied. We're creating a distraction at the main entrance in 30 seconds. Daewon looked at Bada. Ready, girl? Her tail wasn't wagging. She was completely serious, completely focused. She knew this was important. The distraction came. Loud noises, security teams making demands at the main door. All 4 Krell turned toward the sound, their weapons raised. Daewon quietly removed the vent grating. Bada, go. She dropped through the vent silently, landing in a crouch behind a storage container. Daewon followed less gracefully. His landing made a sound. One of the Krell turned. Time seemed to slow down. The Krell saw Daewon, saw Bada. His eyes went wide, wider than Daewon thought possible. The pirate raised his weapon, but he hesitated. Maybe he wasn't sure what Bada was. Maybe he had never seen anything like her. That hesitation saved his life. Bada moved. Not toward the pirate, toward the hostages. She put herself between them and danger, just like she had been trained. Her body was low, her teeth showing, her eyes locked on the threats. The sound she made was not a bark. It was a growl, deep and primal, a sound that said stay back in a language every species understood. The Krell had never heard anything like it. They had stolen from cargo ships, threatened unarmed traders, and bullied weaker species, but they had never faced a predator. Their species had no natural predators. They didn't understand what they were looking at. One of them fired, not at Bada, but just in her direction, trying to scare her. The shot went wide. Bada didn't even flinch. She moved forward, protecting her people, warning the threats. Another Krell swung his weapon toward Daewon. Bada was faster. 75 pounds of muscle, bone, and protective instinct hit him at full speed. The pirate went down hard, his weapon flying from his hands. Bada didn't bite him, she didn't need to. She stood on his chest, growling, her teeth inches from his face. The pirate screamed. It was a high, terrified sound. The other 3 Krell panicked. One fired again, wild, uncontrolled shots that hit the walls. Security teams burst through the main entrance, taking advantage of the chaos. Vortan's team moved with practiced precision, disarming and restraining the confused pirates. It was over in 90 seconds. Bada remained on top of her pirate until Vortan's team secured him. Only then did she step back, returning to Daewon's side. Her tail still wasn't wagging. She was still working. Good girl, Daewon said quietly. Good girl, Bada. Now her tail wagged. Just a little. The hostages were shaking but unharmed. Medical teams rushed in to check them. Hana sat against the wall, her feathers slowly returning to their normal colors. She stared at Beta with an expression Daewon couldn't quite read. Hours later, after all the reports and medical checks and security debriefings, Daewon found himself in the medical bay. Bada had minor injuries, nothing serious, just some scrapes from the vent shaft. The medical staff, who were used to treating aliens, had carefully figured out how to treat a dog. One by one, the former hostages came to see her. The Quilnari researchers stood in the doorway, too nervous to come closer, but they bowed in the way their species showed respect. The Thranxes brought food offerings, which Daewon politely explained that Bada couldn't eat. Finally, Hana came. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, just looking at Bada. Then she walked in slowly and sat down on the floor, a meter away from where Bada lay. I was so scared, Hana said quietly. I thought we were going to die. And then, there she was, between us and them, protecting us. That's what she does, Daewon said. She could have run. She could have stayed safe. But she put herself in danger, for us, for people she barely knows, for her pack. That's how she sees everyone on this station now. You're all her pack. Hana reached out slowly, her hand shaking. Bada watched the movement but didn't move away. Hana's hand touched the top of Bada's head just barely, just for a second. Bada's tail thumped against the medical bed. Hana pulled her hand back and looked at it like it was something new. Then she started crying. Not sad crying, but the kind of crying that comes when fear finally leaves your body and relief takes its place. Part 5. They asked for a pet. Human showed up with a predator. No one could handle. 2 weeks after the pirate incident, Station Valara 9 felt different. The fear that had filled the corridors when Bada first arrived had changed into something else. Not quite comfort, but respect mixed with curiosity. Aliens still gave Bada space when she walked past, but now they watched her with interest instead of terror. The barriers in the biodome had been removed. Bada could now walk freely through most of the station, though certain sections were still restricted. Not because people thought she was dangerous, but because some species were still too nervous, and that was okay. Change took time. Daewon walked through the main corridor with Bada at his side. A young Thranxes named Ixal sat on a bench nearby. Unlike the others of his species who usually fled to high places, Ixal had been watching Bada for days. Today, he didn't run when they approached. Good morning, Ixal, Daewon said. Good morning. The small gray alien's forearms fidgeted nervously. May I ask a question about Bada? Of course. Her fur. It looks soft. Is it soft? Daewon smiled. Very soft. Would you like to feel it? Ixal's large black eyes went even wider. Is it safe? Yes. Here, let me show you. Daewon knelt down and motioned for Ixal to come closer. Hold out your hand, just one is fine, and let her smell it first. That's how dogs say hello. Ixal extended one trembling hand. Bada sniffed it carefully, her nose working. Then her tail wagged, and she sat down. That means she likes you. You can pet her head gently. Ixal's hand touched Bada's fur for just a second, then pulled back. Then reached out again, staying longer this time. Oh, it is soft. Very soft. She likes being petted, and she won't. Bite? Not unless you hurt her, and even then, probably not. Dogs are very patient, especially with people who are nervous. Ixal kept petting Bada, gaining confidence. Other aliens in the corridor stopped to watch. Some took pictures on their data devices. This was news, a non-human voluntarily touching the predator. In the command center, Taeyang was recording a message to send to the Galactic Council. His tentacles moved in patterns that showed he was choosing his words carefully. Esteemed council members, he began. 3 months ago, we invited humanity to participate in the cultural exchange program. We asked them to show us their companion animals. We expected something small and harmless, something like our own domesticated creatures. Instead, we received an education in what companionship truly means. He paused, checking his notes. The human representative Day One brought a dog, specifically a German shepherd named Bada. This creature is, by all standard measurements, an apex predator. Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Powerful jaws with teeth designed for tearing. A body built for pursuit and combat. Natural hunting instincts bred into its very bones. And yet, Taeyang continued, this same creature recently saved 6 lives during a pirate attack. She put herself between hostages and armed attackers. She acted without hesitation, without self-preservation, because her human companion asked her to protect others. His tentacles formed a pattern that meant deep thought. I believe we approached this exchange with the wrong assumptions. We thought humans tamed predators. We thought they controlled dangerous animals through force or fear. We were wrong. Humans didn't tame dogs. They partnered with them. They formed a bond that goes beyond species, beyond the natural order of predator and prey. They created family where logic says there should only be fear. This changes our understanding of humanity. They are not simply another species that reached the stars. They are a species that brought their friends with them. Friends who were once their competitors, their potential enemies. If humans can do this with predators, what else might they achieve? What other boundaries might they cross? He ended the recording and sent it. Within hours, it would reach the Council homeworlds. Within days, the entire galaxy would be talking about it. In another part of the station, Hana stood in front of a classroom of young Quilnari who had come to visit the station as part of an educational program. They were children, barely old enough to fly, and their feathers showed colors of nervousness and excitement. Today, Hana said, you're going to meet someone very special. Someone who scared me very much when I first saw her, but she saved my life. And now I want you to understand what I learned. The door opened. Day One entered with Bada. The young Quilnari immediately fluttered backward, their instincts screaming danger. This is Bada, Hana said calmly. She is a dog. On Earth, where humans come from, dogs live in homes with families. They play with human children. They protect their people. They are friends. But she's a predator, one brave young Quilnari said, her voice high and scared. Yes, she is. And that's what makes this so important to understand. Humans looked at predators and saw potential friends. They didn't run away. They didn't try to destroy them. They invited them to share their lives. And both species became better for it. Hana moved closer to Bada and sat down on the floor. Bada immediately lay down next to her, sensing that the children were afraid and making herself seem smaller and less threatening. Watch, Hana said. She placed her hand on Bada's side where the soft fur rose and fell with each breath. She's warm. She breathes like we do. Her heart beats like ours. She's alive. And she has feelings. She can be happy, sad, excited, or scared. Just like us. The young Quilnari watched in silence. One of them, braver than the others, hopped a little closer. "What if she gets angry?" the young one asked. "Then she would growl to warn us, and we would give her space. But she rarely gets angry. Dogs are very patient. Humans have been friends with dogs for 30,000 years. That's longer than my species has had space travel. In all that time, dogs have been good friends to humans." "Even to human children?" another asked. Daewon pulled out his data pad and showed them pictures. Human babies sleeping next to large dogs. Children playing in yards while dogs watched over them. Teenagers doing homework with dogs lying across their laps. "Especially to children," Daewon said. "Dogs seem to know that children need extra protection. There are millions of stories about dogs saving human children from danger." The brave young Quilnari hopped even closer. Can I touch her?" "Bada," Daewon said softly. "Stay. Be gentle." The young Quilnari reached out with one wing hand and barely touched Bada's ear. Bada didn't move. The child touched her again, more firmly this time. "She's so soft," the young one said with wonder. Within minutes, all the young Quilnari had moved closer. They didn't touch Bada. Most were still too nervous. But they sat nearby, asking questions. How often did she eat? Where did she sleep? What did she like to play with? Did she have friends? Hana watched them and felt something shift in her chest. This was the future. These children would grow up knowing that predators could be friends. They would tell this story to their own children someday. That evening, Vortan stopped by Daewon's quarters. The big Gorlick stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. "Something wrong?" Daewon asked. "No, I came too. I wanted to." Vortan paused, clearly struggling. "My homeworld has problems with wild animals. Dangerous creatures that attack our settlements. We've always killed them or driven them away." "Okay. I've been reading about Earth's history, about how humans didn't just kill their predators, how you found ways to work with some of them, how dogs helped you hunt, helped you guard your homes and farms, helped you survive. That's true. Could it work for other species? Could others learn this? This partnership?" Daewon considered the question carefully. Maybe. It took humans thousands of years, and it started by accident. But yes, I think other species could learn. The important thing is wanting to understand instead of just wanting to control. Vortan nodded slowly. "I'm requesting information about your animal training programs. For my people, we've been fighting our predators for generations. Maybe it's time to try something different. I'll send you everything we have." After Vortan left, Mirai came by. She had a data pad with her and was grinning. "You need to see this," she said, showing him the screen. It was a news feed from the Galactic Network. The story about Bada was everywhere. "Human predator saves lives," read one headline. "New species brings ancient friends to stars," said another. "The dog paradox, how Earth's apex predator became humanity's best friend." But the most interesting part was the comments. Thousands of aliens were discussing it. Some were still scared. Some thought humans were crazy, but many were curious. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand how this was possible. "We're getting requests," Mirai said. "Other stations want to participate in the exchange program. They want to meet dogs. Some species are asking if humans can teach them about domestication. There's even a request for you and Bada to visit the Council homeworlds." Daewon looked down at Bada, who was lying on her bed chewing on a toy. She had no idea that she had become famous. She was just happy to have a toy and her person nearby. "What do you think, girl? Want to meet more aliens?" Bada's tail wagged. She probably thought he was suggesting a walk. Late that night, Daewon stood in the observation deck watching the stars. Hana found him there, as he somehow knew she would. She had been coming to talk to him often these past weeks, asking questions about Earth, about animals, about how humans saw the world.